You ever been driving and almost hit something? Maybe it just came out of nowhere. Maybe you were starting to get a little drowsy, but you saw it at the last minute and then you swerved back onto the road. And then from there on, you was sharp, you was wide awake, you was paying full attention, you wasn't messing with the radio, texting, nothing. And you just sitting there like, man, I'm just so grateful. I could have been in a ditch. I could have hit something. I could have messed up my car. I could have hit another car. Like, you were just grateful, just gratitude just coming over you because you almost hit something, but at the last minute, suddenly you were able to take action and remain safe on the road. And again, you just feel with gratitude and a little bit of panic, but mostly gratitude. You ever did that before? Because that's the exact same thing that happens when you're on the dating scene and you're talking to a guy and then he just suddenly falls back. Y'all would be thinking that you missing out on something. You be thinking that you lost out on something the whole time. You almost wrecked, but you swerved back on. Or the little deer that was coming across the road in the dark middle of the night with no street lights or nothing, it jumped out just in time, just so you could miss it and not wreck. And I see so many of y'all who have that kind of situation, figuratively speaking, and you almost have a wreck. You almost end up in a ditch. I mean, it was just this close, but he fell back. But he stopped texting as much. He stopped responding as quickly. He stopped answering the calls. He stopped planning the dates. He just stopped showing interest. And whenever he did, you felt the way. You felt rejected the whole time. You don't realize, just like when you driving and you just I'm talking about by a hair, by inches, missed something that would have caused you so much harm, could have changed your life, could have messed you up, had you in a hospital or even worse. Y'all don't realize that's exactly what happens whenever you dating. More times than not, whenever a dude suddenly loses interest, I'm not saying there's never a time where you could be doing something different, be improving on your social skills, be more attentive or attuned or be more kind. I'm not saying there's never any room for improvement. What I'm saying is 95% of the time, if you've done the work on you, if you're bringing a certain energy, if you're bringing a good spirit to things, you're not broken, you're not trying to use this man for no money, you're not coming with no malicious intent, like you know that you are a solid woman with a good heart. You ain't comparing yourself to nobody else, but if you did, you'd have to say you was pretty decent. Like, you wouldn't mind your son one day marrying a woman that has similar qualities to you. You wouldn't mind your daughter modeling after you in some type of way. Like, you know how you coming. If that's what you brought to a dating situation and that man just suddenly lost interest out of nowhere, one, it could be something that you did and you didn't know actually did turn him off. I'm going to keep it real with you. Two, it could be he's just not as interested. It could be. But quiet is kept, the majority of the time, neither of those two are at play. Majority of the time, neither of those two are at play, because if you did something so bad, you probably would know. You probably would be aware if you could just be accountable. And if he wasn't going to be attracted to you, nowadays, a lot of times a guy won't even make it to the first date. He would already have peeped that when y'all were just on the phone. So what happens, 90% plus, 90% plus times, is exactly what was happening to the young lady who inspired this conversation. And thank you guys for reaching out. After watching my free training, how to never prepare another man for the next woman, so many of y'all have reached out. Appreciate y'all. But this sister almost broke my heart, man. I'm about to go to sleep. That's why I wanted to come and talk about it. I need to vent. She's been dating, and she's wanting to give up, essentially, because she feels like every time things are going well, the man just suddenly pulls back. She doesn't know why. It must be something because of her. She's the common denominator, etc. And I got some context to what the situations were entailing each and every single time. I noticed something. One, she was giving way too much credit to these men. Because she didn't know them, she was projecting onto them her own good character. She was projecting onto them her good intentions. Y'all, people come and they may look good on the surface and have everything wrong and wretched and poisonous internally. You just don't know that. And they leave before you peep it. Some of them have enough. It's almost like a code amongst thieves, honor amongst thieves, where they have enough of a conscience where Oh, she don't deserve that. I mean, she don't deserve me. Let me go ahead and just move out her way. Let me go ahead and just avoid this because I want somebody on a lower vibration, a little bit easier to control. I've always said you could tell a lot about a man based on who he's interested in, what he's interested in. The same thing goes vice versa. You could tell a lot about a man based on what he's not interested in. You could tell a lot about a man based on what he loses interest in. You can tell a lot. You can tell a lot. Somebody said, but you bought a house together? Oh, you coming from a different comment. I'll get to you. Matter of fact, I'm doing a Q&A. I'm about to do another session for how to never end up being a woman that prepares a man for the next woman. I do Q&As at the end. If you want that, matter of fact, I'm going to put that down in the comments because I did put the link over in the caption. But let me give y'all some free game. The real reason why a man may suddenly lose interest, there's a few of them. So any one of these may apply. Ain't got nothing to do with you. But a lot of men love the thrill of the chase while they fear connection. And I know that sounds crazy because when a man is chasing you, he's chasing connection. He's chasing intimacy. He's chasing closeness and proximity and conversation and time spent. And he's affirming you and he's doing everything he can to get your hopes up and your expectations up about how much you guys can continue to connect. And he's telling you that he's enjoying every second that he's spending connecting and blah, blah, blah. The whole time having a fear of genuine connection beyond the surface layer. You see, there are a lot of men who don't even know themselves beyond the surface layer. There are a lot of men who they only can connect at a surface layer because that's the only place, that's the only level of themselves that they truly accept. Somebody said chasing a high. Joyce, yeah. I call them honeymoon addicts. Addicted to the honeymoon phase. One infatuation to the next infatuation. One, I don't even know you, but we could have everything together to the next. The moment that the real either of you starts to come forth, he just withdraws, just falls back. They love the thrill of the chase. They love the thrill of the maybe, I don't know. They love how they get treated when a woman doesn't know. They love that. But beyond that, they have absolutely nothing to offer. And so you have a lot of guys that will leave or suddenly lose interest or ghost you or sabotage you because they can tell you're more for depth. If you are a woman that's more for beyond the surface layer, the man who's only on the surface layer and can only connect with you on that level is going to lose interest. The moment vulnerability comes into play, the moment you try to have certain conversations, the moment you are showing that you're going beyond the surface layer, the man who cannot handle that will fall back. But it's kind of like whenever you got a pool that goes to like 11 feet deep. You know what? You ain't got to get offended if that's your pool. And you got people that got on floaties because they can't swim. Send them over to the kiddie pool. Don't get offended. Let them go to the kiddie pool where they belong. Because the moment they get out there in that 11-foot deep water, knowing they can't swim, everybody loses. They lose and you, the pool owner, loses. Now, here's another reason why a man may suddenly fall back. Just stop answering, stop responding, just stop, etc., etc. And I'm not talking about the obvious because you wouldn't give him sex or anything like that. A lot of times, a man will try to love bomb his way into understanding you. Let me go a little bit deeper. Because when I say understanding you, I don't mean truly understanding. What I mean is getting information, gathering data. So what he'll do is he'll love bomb. What that means is he'll do all of the right things, say all of the right things to get an idea on how you respond. If you're not desperate enough to keep that going, once he stops, he'll just go ahead and finish on and stop showing any interest and investment into the dating situation. He'll love bomb you to get data on how hooked you get. How easily hooked are you? How quickly does your imagination just run away with all of the things that you guys can do? And then how painful is it whenever he snatches that rug from under your feet? So the love bombing, as opposed to in a situation where, maybe you are more susceptible or something like that. If you actually said, okay, you're love bombing me, but I'm really not interested if it's going to be inconsistent. And you just say, hey, I need you to show more consistency. You ain't out the picture, but you need him to put in more consistent effort. And yet he just falls back and shows no more interest at all because he realizes the love bombing ain't working on you. The love bombing ain't working on you. Yeah, he wanted to follow it with devaluation, but honestly, it's because he's devaluing the fact that he can't have that control that love bombing typically gives a man. So yes, he will suddenly lose interest. Like, oh, this ain't my prey. My predatory instincts were wrong. And then he loses interest. Again, so many times y'all are dodging bullets and then feeling rejected by the bullet. Y'all are dodging bullets left and right, and you see everybody else, and it looked like, well, they caught a bullet, and they got a bullet too. Why I can't have a bullet? You're dodging a bullet. You should be thankful. 90% of the time, these men who lose interest in you with nothing to be interested in to begin with. Another reason why a man will suddenly lose interest is because for fake men, authenticity is a trigger. Authenticity on your end is a trigger. Because if you're authentic, meaning you are firm, you are confident in who you are, you're solid, you know who you are, you're self-aware. It goes without saying that you're going to expect that from him. You're authentic, you love what you love, you don't just jump on any bandwagon, you're not just going with the crowd. You're an independent thinker. You're willing to speak up whenever something doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right, doesn't make sense, etc. Just you living in your truth, just you being authentic will trigger a man who is fake. Because he's going to want to, a fake man is always going to be, first off, a people pleaser. Whatever he can say to be in good graces, whatever he can do to win somebody over, he's going to say and do. And then you're not necessarily going to tap dance like that. So again, a loss of power, but it's really just an unequal, incompatible vibration. You guys aren't on the same level. He can't relate to you. You can't relate to him because you're authentic and you thrive in your authenticity, and he doesn't have that confidence, and that confidence intimidates him. Straight up. That confidence intimidates him. If he's insecure about who he truly is and therefore doesn't accept himself, it's going to be almost intolerable to be with you because you're going to peep that he's fake and he's living a lie. And at some point, you're going to call him out and he's not going to be able to deny it. This is why I love whenever you're dealing with a man, just be your true self. Don't even go with the intention to try and connect necessarily. Just be yourself. And if that connects to that man, then great. You got a connection. Then you build on that connection. But you ain't got to go and try hard or do all of these extra things or jump through these hoops. You just be yourself. And a lot of y'all who already grasp that concept, you got guys who are weeding themselves out. You got trash who is taking themselves out. You're needing clear communication. You're giving clear communication. This man is using coded language, and maybe you giving him the benefit of the doubt because you don't really know him like that. But he knows it's only a matter of time before that mask falls off. That's another reason why a man will suddenly lose interest. And the same thing goes if there's a huge gap in emotional maturity. Again, an unequal vibration, frequency, an incompatible frequency, where he knows at some point he's going to get exposed. And he's probably going to get embarrassed in the process. If you got emotional intelligence, and I'm not just talking about like formal education. I'm not just talking about, just using words he ain't really familiar with, or you having an expanded vocabulary or, anything like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you having a certain command over your emotions. And in speaking to him, he realizes something. He has nothing to teach you. He has nothing to offer you. In fact, even he will come to the conclusion you deserve better. Just the emotional maturity is not even there. And then what he risks is the embarrassment of other people seeing what he's even seeing. So you'll have a man lose interest in you because he's really losing interest in the embarrassment that he's counting on happening. You speak a certain way, you carry yourself a certain way. He can't hang. He's not tall enough to ride this ride. If you've done the work to grow, if you've done the work to develop, if you've done the work to heal, and you come across somebody who hasn't, They're not even aware of what they're dealing with, what they need to heal from. I'm not talking about using therapy speak because he read some long Instagram caption. I'm talking about actually developing and evolving where, you know, grown folks can feel it. Children can feel it. Like people are just drawn to you because you have that level of emotional maturity, and he's not your match. He's definitely not your superior where he has any way to lead you. Yeah, he's going to save himself the embarrassment. He's going to save himself the embarrassment. Then you have guys who are commitment phobes. Y'all, there are so many guys who will come in, present something, say something, knowing they don't actually want commitment. What they're really trying to feel out is if you're also open or tolerant to no commitment. Heather Paul, you said a man literally told you he was holding you back. Y'all, these men know themselves better than what you're probably giving them credit for. They know themselves a lot of times anyway. They know when that's why you hear a dude say something like, oh, I'm just not good enough for you. Believe him. If he say, believe him. He knows exactly what demons he's fighting. He knows exactly what his shortcomings are, what he's not going to do, the work he's not going to put in, etc., etc. Yeah, believe him. Believe him. But again, back to what I was saying. So many men are contradicting when it comes to commitment. It's like deep down they want something, but they know they're not ready for it. So what they'll say up front so they don't face rejection or, again, embarrassment, because that's a huge fear. I want something real. I want something to grow. I want something to develop with somebody. I'm just looking for that special person and I'm good. But what they're really looking for is to screen and see if you're very confident in that. Because the moment that you say something like, if you were to, you know what, I just kind of go with the flow. I just kind of like to try to feel it out and see if it goes anywhere. And if not, that's fine with me too. And at least we could be close and friends and da-da-da-da. You say anything that signifies you're open to gray area, vague, unclear relationships. Oh, he's in. But if you say something like, yeah, I'm glad that's where you're at on commitment, that you really want a commitment, because I don't really accept anything less. I'm not tolerant to, I'm not open to, I'm not entertaining anything that can't lead to the real thing. Y'all don't be knowing how many times that be a deal breaker for a man who had no plans on truly committing. But again, he gets to save face because he said he wanted commitment. That man never truly wanted commitment. Never wanted commitment. And what you'll get is a guy who presents this stuff and then he falls back from you and you see him go to somewhere else and all he did was run to a weaker woman. The only reason why I call it weak is because they're more aligned with his weak character. His weak level of commitment, his weak level of emotional maturity, his weak level of readiness for an actual relationship, his weak level of attention span. I call it the emotional attention span, where he doesn't need somebody new in his face constantly, a new infatuation, a new first impression, a new honeymoon phase in order to stay invested in something. Yeah. Whenever they leave you and you ain't do nothing wrong, they just want to go find a weaker woman. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is a gift. Because, again, if you consider the alternative, instead of a man losing interest in you up front in the beginning, the alternative is him not having any interest in you from the beginning, but continuing to keep you close to use you. And then when he has no more usage for you, then when you've invested in him and connected him with people and encouraged him on his worst days and covered him and took care of him and fed him when he couldn't feed himself and gave him help because that's all he wanted. He never wanted love. And he finally get on his feet. He gonna go to another woman that would have had higher standards from the very beginning. Now, I know a lot of y'all think, well, I have high standards. I still come across these guys and they still try to do this, that, and the other. Here's a secret. I'm gonna just tell how it is. There's two types of women in this world. In a man's mind, there's two types of women in this world. There's a woman that a man knows will prepare him for another woman. And then there's the woman that a man knows he must come prepared for. I've talked about this at length because it's important that if there's gotta be two types of women, if there's gotta be, and there's always gonna be two types of women, you fall into the category of women that a man knows he has to come prepared for. You're not preparing nobody. You're not training up no man that was supposed to come already as a man. You're not doing none of that. You are the one that says, hey, when you get done becoming a man, then you come and find me. And then I'll see if I'm interested. Not build a man. We ain't doing that no more. I don't know how many different decades y'all got to waste with one man after another man and babies y'all want to keep creating with men, but hey, that ain't no good. Come on now. Just to see them move on to somebody else and give that woman everything that you deserve. But if you are tired of that, or if you want to make sure you never encounter that, there are very clear and consistent strategies you need to use when you're dating to vet these men, conversations that you need to be able to have, questions that you need to ask, and red flags that you need to check for to avoid the man that wants you to prepare him for another woman. If you want to know what those are, because that was a whole separate training. I did a deep dive at the link down in the comments. If you see it says DerrickJackson.ewebinar.com, whatever, click that link and get access to the free training. It's about an hour long. I really went in. If you think I went in here, there's got nothing on how I go on these free trainings. Never prepare a man for the next woman. Easier said than done, though, especially if you don't know what to look for, and the game is always changing. So you need to know exactly what to do to avoid these types of men. But moral of the story is this. When a man suddenly loses interest, y'all, stop looking at it like you got rejected. You got spared. You didn't get rejected. You were spared. By the grace of God, you were spared. God looked out for you. You couldn't see what was coming down that pipeline. If that man did have interest in you, you couldn't see what consequences you were about to face for projecting your heart onto that man before he proved where his heart was truly at. You couldn't see it. You couldn't see the ways that man had played on other women's faces and hearts before you came along. You couldn't see the patterns that he had. You couldn't see the addictions that he had. You couldn't see it. You couldn't see what that man does in the dark. You couldn't see what that man is carrying on his health screens and his blood tests. You couldn't see that. You couldn't see the way that this man can't handle his anger. You couldn't see the situations going on in that man's family that were going to be repeated in your family. You couldn't see the impact he was going to have on your friendships and relationships that you've had for years. You couldn't see that. You couldn't see the embarrassment that he was about to bring by the lack of respect he was going to have for a real relationship. You couldn't see those things, but guess what? God did. You were not rejected. You were spared. Be thankful. But those are just my thoughts. You know I'm your internet big brother, and I got your back. So if something that I said resonated with you tonight, all I ask is that you hit the share button, that little arrow. Find that for me, hit that so somebody else on your timeline can also get blessed with this message. And if you want more content like that, if you just heard what I said and you say, hold on, I want a little bit more. Matter of fact, I want a lot more. I highly encourage you to check out the free training that I did before I take it down for good on how to never, ever be the woman that prepares a man for the next woman. The link is down here in the comments. If you see this comment pinned by my page, click that link. It'll take you to something. You'll be glad that you checked that one out. Man, I went in on that one way harder than what I just went on this topic. But the link is down here in the comments, also in the caption.